We're going to go right into our panel. So I'm going to give just a brief introduction of who we've invited and then kind of the order of events. I know I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. I would try to do it in a sequential order. Each of the panelists have about 10 minutes or so. We want to try to, as a surgeon, I want this done at 8. So we're going to try to cut it off at a reasonable time. Anybody that's part of my board meetings know that once the clock hits 8:30, I'm like, okay, we don't have anything else to talk about. But with that being said, so we'll try to be punctual. Appreciate if we could save our questions to the end. Just one bit about medical missions. You know, I'm sure as most of us, I would assume that a lot of us that are medical providers have done maybe potentially some international work. Definitely, we've all done free care for sure. And that's just part of being a practitioner. I would say as a resident, one of the most transformative experiences was spending some time in India, actually, doing cleft lip and palate surgeries. And I still frequently will reflect on those pictures of all those kids that we did surgery on. And it just, it really helps to give you that perspective that, especially in my specialty as a plastic surgeon, sometimes we lose as we transition into more fee-for-service type of procedures. So I hope that you really listen to these providers. All of them have been handpicked for just their exceptional service. A lot of them have actually, like Dr. Shah and Dr. Guesly, have won our President's Award for their just outstanding service. So the order of the speakers is Dr. Shah. He has a video that he produced, which I watched and is absolutely amazing, and that will be followed by Dr. Burton and Dr. Dessiuex, and then Jennifer Lee, one of our local physician's assistants, will do. And then we'll have some questions and everything afterwards. So maybe if the panelists wouldn't mind coming up to the podium, that would be really helpful. Sorry, Dr. Dessiuex, I apologize. I got tongue-tied. So I think you'll just start the video and we'll go from there. You guys, before you guys give your part, would you mind just giving a brief, I'm sorry, I didn't actually do a formal introduction, maybe just a little bit of introduction about who you are, and because not everyone knows, if that's okay.
I'm David Shaw, and I've been in orthopedic practice over here for longer than I want to remember. Came to town in 1978. My wife is there, Rita Shaw, and she's a patient, very forgiving woman. So all of this work that we're talking about involves a family that stays back and holds the phone. I'd like to just introduce the video briefly. This is a video we put together for two purposes. One, to tell family and friends what is it that we go do and then come back starry-eyed about. What happens over there. But also to point out that there are two parts to a medical mission. It's not just us that go and do something. There is a part that is involving the recipient. They are, believe it or not, the heroes of what happens. They have been putting up with disability, deformities, and medical issues that have no answers where they are. So they are the heroes in this video. Thank you for watching.
We've been looking at some of the years of being able to work together as a team of people who are so dedicated to the cause of children throughout the world. Somehow this feels like an amazing privilege that not everybody gets in their lifetime, and it's been given to us. We, of course, share it with some other amazing people. People like Zoraida Figueroa, who started an organization called El Cielo para los Niños, which means sky for children. This was set up in Ecuador. And Sandy and Guido del Prado in Peru. These are absolutely amazing people with amazing dedication. Zoraida is the daughter of one of the richest coffee barons in Ecuador and had owned the central part of Ecuador. But when he died, she used her inheritance to take care of the needs of the children and women of her country. She's been described as a Mother Teresa on steroids. But she's been a powerful force that has fought relentlessly for the indigent people of Ecuador, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica. Sandy, of course, is a local girl from Falls City, Oregon. She went to Peru as a young Peace Corps worker, and the story goes that with some difficulty, she was swept off her feet by a dashing young Guido del Prado. They got married and settled there. Their dream, however, did not come true until they set up this little hospital in a village in Coya, Peru. Coya is up at 9,000 feet elevation and is surrounded by the beautiful Andes Mountains. It is like a beacon in the sacred valley and beyond, and as a place of hope and healing, and exudes love for the poorer people of Peru. It is an amazing place for these people. But all of this really wouldn't mean a whole lot if we didn't have the relationships that we've developed over the years with the people of these countries that we go to. People like Roosevelt and his father, Astrid, Tatiana, Viviana, who we saw as a scared little girl with Blount's disease and these horrible deformities in her knees. But we also saw her go through treatment for this and come out as a beautiful young woman. We are extremely proud of her. One of the things that has always been amazing to me is a feeling that never goes away when we get there. Seeing a group of 50 to 1,000 people looking at you and expecting an answer for their problems, it is overwhelming. It is also extremely scary every single time that we go there. How can all of these people have been waiting here just for us? What is the level of their frustration in their lives that brings them? I have never been able to overcome that sudden feeling of fear in the pit of my stomach when I first walk into that crowd. And yet we pull ourselves together every single time. The team pulls itself together and we get to work. And by the end of the day, we've seen every single one of them. It was in that crowd that we met Astrid for the first time. What a beautiful little girl, and what a beautiful personality, and yet what a horrible deformity. At the end of only 5 minutes with her, we had to tell her and her young family that the only way that she's going to be able to walk was with the amputation of both her legs. She was going to lose just the part that everybody else uses to walk with. Her parents were so young, and I just wonder what it felt like to be told this, and then to realize that they had only the night to make up their mind. They had to make that decision and tell us the next morning because we will be leaving pretty soon. And that night I remember that I lay awake, and I'm sure just the same way as they lay awake. I was struggling with her diagnosis. I was struggling with the decision. I knew diseases that came close to causing these types of problems, but none of them matched what she had. And I had advised something that was a treatment that we could never go back on. And I was worried that if they came back with an answer that was yes, how well did we make that decision? Was that decision right or not? But we also could not leave her the way she was. She had to walk on her knees and hide the deformity behind herself in these silk blues clothes. And that was not going to be good. What about her teenage years? What about her life as a young woman? Well, the next morning came and the decision had been made. And the next day came and the next few days came and went. And then the next year came and there was Astrid.
Like Astrid's story, it's hard to explain to others the moments of joy that Tatiana has brought into our lives. We met Tatiana for the first time in Ecuador when she was about 10 years old. And she was a beautiful young girl with long, fancy nails, but she had a vacant and just hopeless look about her. She had been hit by a car and that had left her paralyzed from the waist down. And she had an undiagnosed right hip displacement, which no one had noticed before, that didn't allow her to sit up. And she had spent the last year and a half of her life laying on a bed staring at the ceiling. Our team offered her surgery to just let her sit up. We didn't give her much else that we were going to do for her. And our team got together, group started doing surgery. In the meantime, Rob, who was our orthotist, brace man, flew back to Oregon over the course of a weekend, built a back brace in order to stabilize her back, and flew back. We'd brought along an old, funny-looking wheelchair that we had no clue what it was for, and the therapist immediately knew that that chair was meant for her, and they got it assembled and ready for her. I still remember the day that she sat up in the chair the first time. We watched her smile, and we watched life flow back into her face for the first time. We also saw hope flow into her mother's face as well. Over the next few years, we did several surgeries to help stabilize her back. And during that time, we watched Tatiana grow up into a beautiful young teenager. She gained confidence, and she was able to look past all her deformity and handicaps, and she wanted to pursue her dreams. And as a full-fledged teenager, it amused me to no end that she had the same thing that every child in the world has, and that's to start spreading your wings and fledge from your nest. When she'd mastered a new wheelchair that we had given her, which allowed her to use her arms to push it around instead of requiring her mother to push her places, she had a big plan in mind. She had Dr. Shaw and our whole team just hang out in the hallway while she hid around the corner, getting all ready to go. The therapists turned her loose. She came wheeling around that corner with her arms on the wheels, but she had a piece of paper clutched in her hand, which she wanted to share with us. And that piece of paper was a diploma, which showed that she had graduated from high school with honors, which had only happened because she was allowed to sit up again from our first surgery. The tears of joy that she had at that point and we shared with her was an amazing experience. After we got over the tears, I asked her what she wanted to do with all her newfound freedom, and without a second thought, she said what every teen probably wants to say: I want to go somewhere without my mother. Over the next couple of trips, the therapist and our brace man were able to develop a system that would allow Tatiana to stand up and use the little power she had in her legs to be able to stand up at a drafting table because she wanted to become a graphic artist. I still remember the look of sheer determination mixed with the triumphant joy that she had on her face when she got up the first time, clutching the side of the table and standing up. She was so excited and so elated, and that smile was just priceless. The therapists also developed some special rigging so that her hands would be free, so she could stand at a drafting table, not sit at it. She could be just like her peers and do her work.
Talking about legs that don't work, Russell is a little boy that we saw with these deformities from osteogenesis imperfecta. His only wish in life was to be able to stand and not be laughed at. But his legs were so deformed, they were like spaghetti under him because of the softness of the bones. He came in with his dad, who had walked him down for several hours down the Andes. He had been to several places and had had several procedures done on his legs, but none of them had corrected the deformities. Just about at the time that they arrived at the clinic, the floods arrived and the roads were getting blocked. There were major landslides on the way, and we had to tell them that they may need to go back home while they still could go home. And yet the dad sat there and waited for these other emergencies to be taken care of, these trauma emergencies. And then finally he said, I'm going to wait. I'm going to stay because of my son. And of course, Rosebill had his surgery and his legs were straightened out. But to me, there was an amazing portion to that story. It was the dad, Kondori. When we finish the surgeries, there is a lot of activity to try to get ready for the next case. And Kondori, his dad, came over to the recovery room as all the parents are brought into the recovery room to take care of their kids while they're waking up. And he looked at his son and both his legs were nice and straight, and Rosabelle was awake and had survived the surgery, this major surgery. And Kondori tried to stop all the activity around us, and finally he got my eye, and we said, okay, he has something to say or something that he wants to question. And so we all stopped around him, and I remember that moment so clearly. Here was this gentleman who was dealing with completely different people, these peculiar people from a different culture, from a different place. And here he was from the rural areas of the Andes and had not confronted people like us before. And yet he made us stop because he had something to say. He took his hat off, and then he started to speak, but the words never came. And all he could do was put his arms around us and hug us. And to me, that was an amazing moment. Because at that point, it didn't really matter who was the giver or the taker. We were all takers at that moment. It was a moment that basically depicted what this is all about. It is not about people going and doing things to other people. It is not about people receiving. It is about a connection. It is a human connection. And to me, that is the driving force behind what goes on. After all of these trips, I always think about it and I ask myself this question. What is it that drives us to do this? And I know that it has been an amazing journey. It is the trust and the intense emotion of this journey that occurs in us. These journeys open our souls. They make us deal with ourselves and our inadequacies and emotions. It also makes me ask the question, could we all have been made from the same mold? A mold that creates in us the same emotions, the same needs, and the same joys. A mold that lets us all be plagued by the same demons of disease and deformity and fear. And could it be that our nationality, our religions, our dress, our status in life, all of those things are merely the decoration over and above that?
That's a tough act to follow.
Dave, I don't have anything that dramatic and that awesome. I mean, that's above and beyond anything that some of us can even imagine. I'm Orin Bruton. I have been a member of this society since 1974. So I've been around a day or two. I retired a number of years ago from Cascade Cardiology. Prior to that, I served a stint with Salem Hospital as a medical director, and that's a good way to get gray hair. But while I was in practice, I went on a medical mission to Peru. And I was just really blown away by that, as David has expressed. But I got busy as I got back, and time went by. And when I retired, I felt like I wanted to give back. But I had a lot of obligations here. And I realized that there are a lot of folks right here in Salem who, some of them are almost that bad, but there are a lot of people just do not have access to care. They don't have the funds. They go without medicine. They end up in the emergency room. And the emergency room can tell you horror stories of some people putting things off. So I got involved through a friend of mine, encouraged me to check out Salem Free Clinic. It's located at Broadway and Hood currently. And all of a sudden I realized that that's a good opportunity to serve right here in Salem. The history of Salem Free Clinic goes back to about 2005, the Foursquare Church decided that they wanted to reach out and help people. So they set up temporary clinic on Saturday mornings in Walker Middle School's gymnasium. Bring in tables and screens and do what they could do. Donated medications, donated people. That went on for a while. Then they moved out to North Part Town. Then they also established care at Trinity Covenant Church, which lasted up until about 6 years ago. But the wonderful thing was Broadway Commons was built. And Broadway Commons is the Broadway coffee shop you go by at Broadway and Hood, but the Salem Free Clinic has a lovely clinic there. It 6 exam rooms that are just great. Their ability to do a little bit of lab work, check diabetic control, A1Cs, etc. So I thought, well, yeah, I think I could do that. So it grew, and more people started volunteering, more providers. We found out that a lot of diabetic care, a lot of hypertensive care, and it's a lot of patients. Now, it was started, as I say, by the church, and the mission of the Free Clinic is as an outreach to God's children. But it's not a religious clinic. It's there if they do have a prayer room. If people like to have prayer, they can. But that's not asked. It's open to all comers that do not have insurance. We've been called the safety net of safety nets because we take all comers that we can handle. Some things we cannot. But it does provide a source. The majority of the patients that are seen currently, don't surprise you probably, diabetes, hypertension, and depression. And a lot of the clients are the working poor. There are people who are working, but they just don't have money to buy medicines or to pay medical bills. Imaging fees are out of sight for some of them. So we do what we can do. And when I started as a cardiologist, I don't know family practice. I'm not like Keith White over here who can really, knows what's going on with all kinds of things. But I had help. Harvey Price was there. Rick Ikram was there. Lauren Winthrop, Debbie Eisenhut. All these people helped me out. So, and we soon learned that I could do what I could do, and they could do what they could do. And I began to get more and more comfortable. And the staff is awesome, just awesome. Very helpful. Now the clinic has grown to the point that there are about 13 specialties represented. We have our mental health provider, Nick Kravitz, is here. It's really an opportunity to serve right here. We kind of would like to have people volunteer. We got lots of room. I had to retire from it due to a medical issue of my own. However, if you have 1 or 2 days a month, 3 hours at a time, you're welcome. You'll get lots of help. You have flexible schedule. If you want to go on vacation or trip, go. You're not tied down. And it's great because the clinic provides malpractice insurance without any limits completely. It doesn't cost you a cent. And that's really a relief. Also, for those of us who are retired, we don't have to maintain a DEA number because the clinic does not prescribe any controlled substances. On the rare occasion that somebody's got to be titrated or something, the medical director, Dr. Jim Burke, is still in practice, will take care of that. Some of the things that we can do are simple. We've seen everything from wounds. We had to refer to wound care, but a lot of it's treating common infections, giving immunizations, diabetic follow-up. We have a diabetic nurse and a couple of people who are very good at dealing with diabetics. And boy, that's a big issue. It's just a really big issue. We have a couple people who can deal with women's health. We would like orthopedics. We would like surgery, maybe to volunteer somewhere along the line. But we do what we can do, and we have a full-time staff now due to the generosity of the people in Salem and organizations. I think we have something like 14 full-time equivalents that work at the clinic. A couple of you met over the table over here this evening. We have a patient navigator who helps connect people with resources, who can help them find resources to get through and referrals. And that's one of the things I ask if you don't feel you have time to volunteer there. Sometimes we have to ask you to take a referral from the clinic. And that sometimes is difficult. I remember calling up one of my ex-partners and, would you mind, seeing so-and-so? And they're not going to pay a dime. They don't qualify for the Oregon Health Plan. They don't have any other income. So it's tough sometimes, but it's important. And we can get them through. But a lot of the people we see are taken care of and followed. And we have them come back for sometimes follow-up visits. The staff works very well together. They're just, tremendous. We do have a tie-in with a pharmacy group called Medication of Hope. And they provide the clinic at a small fee medications that we give out for free. There are some things that are not available at this point, are inhalers. However, the clinic now has some money to purchase those for people with respiratory problems. Now, it's challenging. It's not always easy. My biggest problem is I don't speak Spanish. And we have a lot of Spanish-speaking patients that come. We have awesome interpreters, and they do a great job. Sometimes you get people that speak other languages. I had one Romanian, and it's not always easy, but we managed to get through. So the other thing I'd like to thank is actually Salem Health has stepped up because they provide lab and imaging to the patients. They have to fill out some paperwork, and that's sometimes a stumbling block, but they will be provided for by Salem Health, and I really appreciate them for that. I mean, it's been a lifesaver. And not to bore you with a lot of other talk, I would like to show you a story called Bill's story about just a patient that's there. We do have one full-time nurse practitioner, and he is featured in this short video. But it gives you a sense of who we deal with and how appreciative and how great patients are that come and receive health care there. And the community has been very generous to Salem Free Clinic. And I really want to applaud the community for that. So I'd like to show Bill's story.
My name is William Norman, and this is about my first visit to the free clinic. I didn't think I was ever going to make it here because I was in bad shape, real bad shape. I didn't think I was going to make it much longer. I had just found out that I was going to lose my house. But in the shape that I was in and losing my house, and I had just gotten the dog, it was pretty stressful. I really didn't know what to do anymore. I'd tried everything. I couldn't get anybody on the phone because it was all during the COVID. And just, you couldn't talk to anybody. Nobody was answering their phones. The government, the state, nobody would talk to you. I had given up. And then I came into the free clinic, and that's when I met Dr. Busey.
My name is Brad Busey, and I'm a family nurse practitioner on staff here at Salem Free Clinic. When I first met Bill, it was back in March of 2021. He had recently lost his job just prior to the pandemic starting. therefore he lost his health insurance, and he wasn't able to afford his medication to treat his high blood pressure and his COPD, as well as struggling with mental health and being on the verge of losing his home because he couldn't pay for the mortgage. His blood pressure was very high and his COPD was out of control. Medications for COPD are generally very expensive, so I knew we were going to need to help get him assistance to pay for these medications. So we did help Bill apply for a medication assistance program that eventually paid for his inhalers that he needed to treat his COPD.
It was amazing. It made such a difference. I felt for the first time, and I can't even think, it was probably a couple years that I could actually breathe pretty good. And I felt, I mean, just that one visit made such a difference in the way I felt. I actually could walk out to the car and I wasn't exhausted. Before I even got to the second appointment, I was evicted out of the house. And I blew out my right knee. So I could barely even walk then. And it was kind of funny because I came in for the second visit hobbling. The nurses and everything, they were talking quite a bit about God and stuff, and I had pretty much given up on God, thinking that he had dumped me, so I'm dumping him. And I was thinking pretty hard about suicide. I had just given up.
So when Bill came to us, as I mentioned before, he was in pretty bad shape. And little by little, we've seen some huge improvements, not just in his physical health, but also his mental and spiritual health.
I was very religious at one time, and it just kind of brought back a lot of memories about how happy I was when I was with God a lot. It made me realize you're doing exactly what everybody does, blaming God. You can't blame God. It's not God that does the bad things. It gave me hope again, because I lost all hope, and I got it back. I really believe that if I hadn't seen him that day, I wouldn't be here today, because I was done. I was tired. I was worn out. I'd given up.
You can just see in a person a glow when they're doing better, and I see that glow in Bill now when I have a visit with him. What we can provide as a clinic to our patients at no cost to them, everything from mental health to counseling. In Bill's situation, we were able to help him apply for medication assistance so that he could receive his inhalers for free, which is a huge help. Also in Bill's situation, we were able to hook him up with community resources that helped him with food boxes, which was also a big help, and the list goes on.
I love the man. He's my savior, really. I mean, he came through for me all the way, 100%. And even in the predicament that I'm in, I've been living in my car for a little over a year now. We still have hope. There's always hope. That was one of the important things that they taught me here at the free clinic. Don't give up on God. Keep God in your heart. Keep him with you.
We have an amazing clinic here of staff and volunteers who are just waiting for people to come through the doors to help. So I'm very excited to come on board full-time at the Salem Free Clinic. I've seen the huge impact that we've been able to make. I chose Salem Free Clinic for its reputation and for its mission of providing quality, compassionate healthcare to uninsured for an expression of Christ's love.
It's really important to people who don't have any other ways. Very important. And we thank you a lot. It's we appreciate it more than you'll ever know.
I might say the bill got housing shortly thereafter. And I forgot to mention that we have 35 providers volunteering their time and 220 other volunteers. So it's a large group, put in a lot of time. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Guesly Dessiuex, and I am a family physician at Centennial Hospital. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about medical mission and the importance of medical mission in itself, and then our partnership with Corbin University. To start out with, I was about 5 years old, and I was living in Haiti, and I was playing soccer, which my wife will not be surprised, and I got injured. And so having a doctor around was not an easy thing. And so my mom was a nurse, and at that time they had a team that came from the United States, and she was going to take me with her so I could be seen. And so I was there the whole day just watching the providers working and taking care of people and the compassion they had. And my way home, I told my mom, that is exactly what I want to do. I want to be a physician, and I want to travel around, and I want to take care of people who are impoverished. She looked at me and thought, we live in Haiti. Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and we are not a wealthy family. There's no way that I'll be able to accomplish that. She didn't tell me that at that time, but she inspired me to follow my dreams, and so I did. And eventually I came to the United States and went to medical school. And during medical school, we had a team that was going to go to Panama. And I thought, well, I need to join that team and go to Panama and serve. And so I did. But it just rekindled that fire inside of me. And we had all these students that had this passion. And I thought, man, how much we could inspire students to do more and be more in life. And so after the earthquake in 2010, the provost of Corbin University came to me and said, I would like for you to create a mission trip for students to go to another country like Haiti. I thought, well, I don't know about taking students to Haiti right now. You know, we just had the earthquake. Things are really difficult. But he said, just think about it. So I thought about it for a while, and I thought, well, I'll probably need someone else to kind of help me with the process. And so in 2011, we started to think about the process, and we started the Corbin medical team. Why is it important to, one is to expose students to poverty? Why is it important to expose students to, to not being as comfortable as they're used to? And why is it so important to show them the humanness of what we do on a daily basis, especially in a third world country? Because it's really hard if you're uncomfortable and you're a place where you're uncomfortable and you cannot get out. And that is often the situation which we deal with when we are in Haiti. And Haiti and Honduras is the only two countries that which we have taken the students. But we speak about the joy and the good thing that's kind of happened as missionaries and being on the field. But what we often don't talk about is the difficult aspect of not being able to help a child that is dying because you don't have a ventilator. Seeing a kid with meningitis that we know in the U.S. we would have vaccine to prevent them from dying from meningitis, and we can't do anything. Or going to a hospital and having a baby on a vet, and you're begging with the hospital to please take him because the other two vent are already taken, so you're begging them to keep them alive for hours. Those things we don't talk about. But some of the things are the things that my students often have to encounter on the trip, and I have to spend time explaining that to them. So we had to create courses in the process to teach them about poverty and medicine. Because what they may face overseas is not what they're going to see here. But it's still about the people, and the people which we serve, and the people which we take care of. And so when we started this trip, it's not a small trip. We usually have somewhere between 30, sometimes as high as 40 people that partake on this trip. And so the days are busy, depending on which country we are in. In Haiti, we start our days at time at 4 in the morning, and it's 12 midnight sometime when we're getting done, getting prepared for the next trip. And so the students have to work hard. And now at Corbin, there is a course for them that they take. It's a whole year's course that they take to partake, learning about poverty and learning about medicine, not just medicine in foreign country, but really, do you really want to be a doctor? Do you really want to be a nurse? Do you know what it takes? But also helping them to find their passion, because they have to grow and develop their own passion to serve. And what we have found is the success is that 80 plus students that have taken part in our course or that have gone on a mission trip in Corbin have gone into some form of medicine, which is amazing to continue to inspire them. And so, our clinic days usually, we usually have a lot of people. We kind of have a system which we kind of work, and it really kind of varies to what we see. And we can't do it without the providers that serve and volunteer their time. And we do have a lot of providers here that have volunteered their time to go to whether Haiti or Honduras. These pictures are just us in Haiti. We take dentists, optometrists, pharmacists, surgeons, orthopedics, podiatrists. And so we take emergency doctors because we've had to take care of so many things on the field. And so as you look at those students, and some of the places that we go are often remote. We're hiking in a couple of, this place we probably hiked in close to an hour carrying medication. But, they always have a smile in their faces. And some of the places are easy. This is Dr. Learman, Esther. And so she was one of our first students. And now she works at Centiem. And she has gone back to volunteer her time. And so we have students that after 12 years that are coming back and volunteering their time. And we initially do evaluation. It all depends where we are at. But we do have surgical rooms, which we are able to do both emergency surgery and handle trauma, depending on the location where we are at. And the student get a chance just to kind of see a doctor be a doctor. And that's what we do. And it's about, the people. This is Sarah Comstock. She is the lead for the Corbin students, and she really is, she's really is the glue to helping the Corbin mission teams to function. And the students, this is us in Honduras. And so because Haiti was unstable, out of 12 years, we only spent 1 year which we did not take a trip. That was during the pandemic. And afterward, we just figured out we're just going to keep going because the students still have to learn how to function. And so Haiti became so unstable, we were unable to go to Haiti. So we changed to going to Honduras. And so the students, they always have a smile on their face. No matter how hard no matter how hard the week is, they really appreciate the opportunity of seeing medicine in a third world country and realize how fortunate they are being in the state. And so and then we often work with a mission organization, and they often send their providers with us because we feel that is important. Because if we see a patient that's really sick, we need to be able to hand them off to make sure they are able to follow up care. And that's the babies that we see. And everybody likes to carry babies. I don't know why. They all like babies. Other students do. And so, and then, this is what it's really about. It's about our patient, whether it's here in the States, whether it's in Haiti, whether it's in Honduras, whether it's in Africa. It really is about our patient. And so it's the same when we go overseas, taking care of those who are most at risk and those who are most vulnerable. And this is us more in Honduras over the last 2 years. And, it's a beautiful country. And then sometimes I have the privilege of traveling with my twin brother. My twin brother is also a physician. And so we went to medical school together. But the one point of what we all do is it's really not about us. We learn just as much from the people we interact with overseas as the treatment that we give. And sometimes it challenges us emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And it is hard, but we often come back just different. We come back just better. And that's at times it's hard to kind of explain the experiences that we we do experience. But we're not better because we go out and serve. We're better because of the people that we interact with. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Lee. I'm an adult nurse practitioner, site medical director at the Kaiser Salem Health Clinic. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about some mission work that I've been doing over the past 22 years. And so I attend Salem Alliance, and Salem Alliance is a big sponsor of the Salem Free Medical Clinic. And for me as a Christian, I feel like it's my responsibility to share love and compassion in tangible ways. And for me, one of these big opportunities has been to serve in Thailand. So we sent our first team from Salem to Thailand in 2002 at the request of local missionaries in Thailand, church leaders, village leaders that identify communities in need, and we traveled to those areas. So sometimes our clinics are pretty posh, like this one. We've got walls and a ceiling and a floor. And other times we have dogs and water buffalo and chickens and whoever else kind of wandering through. For us, it's really important that we take time to spend time with everyone that we see. And we've been fortunate enough that we've been able to see all of the folks that show up for clinic that day. Over the last many trips, one of the things we do is we hand out reading glasses. And some of you are old enough where perhaps reading glasses are of benefit. And it's a simple way to make a huge impact. This woman here is Hmong, and we work a lot with the Hmong Hill tribe. They're quite marginalized in Thailand. Even though the country has a socialized system, these folks tend to be marginalized because they're not really ethnic Thai. They're kind of fun to put on an advertisement for your country, but not so much as far as relationship with education, transportation, and so on. And so for this woman, after she got her reading glasses, she was just so overjoyed because she could practice her traditional embroidery. Because we've had such a long partnership, we've been able to go back to some communities over the past 20 plus years. So this young girl was diagnosed with congenital heart disease the first time I saw her, and I'm not a pediatric person, but I knew enough to figure out that bit. So it was fun to go back a few years later and to see we've been able to make connections for them so that she could get access to care locally. This is Tom Flaming. He's a retired family doc out of Dallas, and Tom and I have been on almost all of these trips together. And as I said, it's the stories that people want to share. So many of them have never accessed healthcare before, and it's a great opportunity to give them a sense of being heard and being cared for, but also providing education on some basic healthcare. So this is Tom talking with this woman who's creatively created a prosthesis for her. And I remember at one of our clinics, I was checking on Tom and I said, how are things going? And Tom leaned back in his chair and he said, well, we're up to World War II. And so I always loved that because we wanted to give people time. Especially with the Hmong, they cook with this traditional open fire in their homes. And so from the first time that we went on all these years since, we've wanted to try to help target a way that they could modify their cooking method to reduce that respiratory disease burden. And so we sent a couple of teams with the capacity to teach them how to build a rocket stove, which will significantly reduce combustion, but they're able to build it with local supplies and still maintain their traditional way of cooking. So these were the accommodations. My husband has volunteered with us on our rocket stove team. And so sometimes the accommodations are a little bit more rustic. As some of the leaders have gotten a little bit older, the accommodations are getting a little bit nicer. So if you're thinking about serving with us, we tend to stay a little bit more in hotels. Maybe not 5-star hotels, but this is one of my more rustic clinics. We had shade, and that was what we were grateful for. This gentleman is a heavy drinker, had no real concept that his health problems were related to his alcoholism. And really the first time he sort of admitted that this was a concern for him. Briefly, I wanted to tell this quick story. This is a young boy in 2013 that came to one of our clinics. Most of the time when children come, they come with their family, and Ba came by himself. And he sat down at my station and he asked me to give him any medicine that I could. And our formula is pretty simple because these folks are antibiotic naive, and we're not starting patients on anti-diabetic medicines or antihypertensives because we can't maintain it. So I asked Ba if he could take me to where he lived. And he lived in this hut essentially by himself. His mother is 6.5 hours south in Bangkok working, his father deceased. And his grandparents, grandpa was an alcoholic and grandma could barely manage to take care of him. We have a connection with an organization called Remember New, which works to prevent children from being sold into sex trafficking. This is a particularly high sex trafficking route. And so through those connections, again, with being in the community all these years, we were able to get Ba into housing at a children's home with his parents' consent, where he can go to school, receive his, housing and his food. And 3 years later, I got to go back, and he's the goalie on his soccer team. And again, as everybody's mentioned, it's these relationships. A short-term team can make a big difference. This is our most recent trip. We went in January 2023. This is my 16-year-old daughter, who herself is ethnic Thai, and she was able to volunteer with us as our eye doctor. And this gentleman's like 90-something. The reading glasses really aren't going to help him, but he was so, again, delighted. The first pair of glasses he'd ever received, and his family was just so touched by our time and care for him. Special needs folks, they suffer in the US, they suffer disproportionately in countries like Thailand. And so, again, these interactions where we as the foreigners extend physical compassion and touch sends a powerful message to the community that we perceive value. I just love these ladies. There's just so many great, to me, National Geographic moments, with her sunglasses and her teeth are all gone from her betel nut addiction. And my other little lady there also with no teeth, but just so delighted to be able to have an opportunity to talk to a doctor or a nurse. Most recently, I went to Kenya, and that was actually with the organization I mentioned, Remember New. And Remember New identifies kids that, as I mentioned, are at high risk of being trafficked. And right now, their goal is to try to get children connected with primary care or well child checks. So in a country like Thailand, they've got good access to healthcare for their kids in care, but not so much so in Kenya. And the concept of a well child check doesn't exist. You don't go to the doctor in Kenya for anything except a problem if you can afford it. So this was a team of medical and non-medical personnel from across the US. And we were able to spend time working with children in Nairobi. The leader of the program in Kenya, Joseph, grew up in that slum photo that I had just shown you. And I could talk for an hour just about Joseph's story and how he was able to move out of that abashed poverty to being the leader of this really amazing children's organization. So the kids that we saw, we were able to identify maybe some significant health needs that they had. And again, a lot of health education and dental care. That was a huge need for kids in Kenya. And their dental care is very expensive. It's almost on par to dental care in the US without insurance. I had to put up, just like Ba, a child that I ended up sponsoring. These were a couple of girls I've been sponsoring in Kenya. So it's pretty special to be able to go and actually tangibly touch them and say hello. And they made some nice pictures for me. Gave them a couple of books. This woman here, a young woman on the right, she's from the Maasai tribe, where girls are still at a major disadvantage. It's not uncommon for girls to be married at extremely young ages. Female circumcision, although illegal in Kenya, is still a practice that's carried on. And when these girls come into care, it's important for the program to keep them within their tribal group. So, yeah. Just a couple other shots of things that we were doing, hearing the kids' visions for their future, providing education for the parents that are taking care of them. One of the mothers, dorm mothers that I spent time with, I was talking to her about preventive care that she could actually access, but she'd never even heard of like a pap smear. And she said, we die of ignorance. And we had another parent that had come. We had a physician assistant from Bend who is a cardiothoracic cyst, and diagnosed her with severe aortic stenosis. And she actually came back with an echocardiogram a couple of days later. So I think for me, being able to spend time serving is something that fills my bucket. And like my colleagues have shared, the experience, I feel like I come back much more blessed than I'm able to bless those folks that we see. Unlike Dr. Shaw, we're not doing major surgeries, but we are showing up and we are spending time and we are providing education and, again, that sense of value. And we can use anybody. We've had ER physicians and cardiologists and primary care, and anybody that wants to serve. We're often short of providers, so.
All right, does anybody have any questions for our panel? Please. So the question is, how do non-medical providers support one of the said organizations that the providers are participating in? Do you guys have any feedback, Dr. Dessiuex?
Well, for Corban, it's part of their curriculum now for a trip overseas. And they've implemented not only for their pre-medical students, for their nursing students, for any health-related student who wants to go. One of the things they also have to learn to do is they have to learn to fundraise. We actually go through formal training of fundraising for them to fundraise their costs to go. So there's always an opportunity to donate toward Corbin, toward the trip, and so from that way. But for people who are providers, we're always extending a hand out for them to join us.
Any other panelists?
Yeah, well, the one organization that I mentioned, Remember New, that works to prevent children from being sold into sex trafficking, that's a website. It's a not-for-profit that you could donate to. I know for us, when we go on our teams through Salem Alliance, we are always doing our own individual fundraising as well.
As I mentioned, Salem Free Clinic has people right here. You can walk in and talk to Jenny or Maddie about what's available. A lot of non-clinical support. There's medical records to take care of, other things that you can do. All you have to do is ask. They have a website, and we have fundraisers at least twice a year. And the community has really stepped up to support us in that aspect.
Several years ago, Eric Miller, who's Dr. Keelan's husband, had set up capital city medical teams, and he does some fundraisers, donations to capital city medical teams, fund mostly supplies. Each person on our teams basically supports themselves. And I got to say, for the money that is put into these by any individual, it is amazing what it does. It's a small donation sometimes, but what it accomplishes in life-changing of people that really don't have it, whether it's there or whether it's here, it really doesn't matter where it is. It is amazing. And I want to, while I have the microphone, go back to something that all of the panelists addressed. It really ultimately does not boil down to fixing somebody's deformity, fixing somebody's medical issues. It is quite often just the fact that that person had somebody that cared. Somebody came, whether they came from across town or whether they came from another country. They came, they made the effort. I am important to at least somebody. And that, believe it or not, is the biggest difference that occurs. And that is over here. I see it in my practice, that if you can connect with the person, that's what they're looking for. The physical aspects sometimes are secondary. One of the most important things that on our trips is we can see a person with a deformity or a problem that may not have a way of being corrected. But if we sat down and answered their questions, explained what was going on to that person, they understood whether they even understood that, no, there isn't an answer for this, I'm going to have to live with it. But their questions were answered. To me, that is 100% cure right there. And we didn't spend any money, we didn't spend anything. So that is what I think everybody has tried to bring out. That we go there not just for the physical aspects, but also to connect with people.
Thank you. Maybe Harvey, maybe we could put some links to their on our homepage here in another couple weeks or so. We could have up some links to some of the individuals. Please go ahead.
I would have something kind of on the opposite side. If you were a provider and you heard something tonight that Dr. Shaw said or Dr. Dessiuex or Jennifer, and you said, I'd like to go with their group, do we contact them directly to find out how to do that?
Yeah, so I think there's probably two avenues. I'm sure myself or Harvey will have, our medical executive director will have their contact information, and then also, all of you are easily found for the most part. So also contacting them directly if there's a specific. Is that reasonable for everyone on the panel? Right? Yeah. Does that answer your question? Anybody else? Well, I just want to say thank you so much for everyone for coming out, and thank the servers. They did a great job. Food was wonderful. And thanks Manny as well and his group. And then obviously thank our panelists for being absolutely inspirational. So we appreciate it.